we're getting the end of the theme music. Maybe we can start the theme music again. Hold on. Hang in there, everyone.
Hold that thought.
I know, right? There we go.
Yeah.
I want you to hear this, right?
That's a jam.
Yeah. Feel it. I mean, just getting started.
This is sick. Ooh. Okay. Yes.
Right?
There it is. I love this.
It's so good.
I feel like this should be what elevator music but it isn't.
I know,
Like,
right?
this would be so much more fun in an elevator than what they play.
I always believe in a good dance party elevator. You ever done that?
No.
Yes.
Whoa, I need to do that.
Yeah.
Makes things less awkward.
Well, oh my goodness. Welcome, Cassadee Pope.
Thank you for having me.
What the heck? And first of all, let's shout out. I know it's so good. We want to play it again. Want to shout out to my friend Julius Wilder, who composed and produced the CultureCast intro song. So thank you, dude. You know me so well, and you were feeling the bass, right?
Nailed it. Yeah, I loved
And then
it.
like the different like stages of the conversation
Yeah.
actually happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a good dynamic in that little clip. That was
so anyway,
awesome.
thank you, Julius, for doing this. I so appreciate it. And oh my gosh, thank you, Cassadee, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I love when we can do a live, literally live and in person.
Yeah.
I also want to do one more shout out. So to everybody who is watching, we'll occasionally look at you because we know comments might be coming through.
Hi.
And then we'll be, of course, talking to each other. But we are actually sitting here live in person in Nashville,
Yeah.
right? So you're here in the Ville.
Yeah.
Secondly, we are so close to Music Row. I don't know anyone can tell this background. We are sitting in this place called the Hideout, which originally is in the basement of Waylon Jennings' home. So Waylon Jennings' home is right above us.
Yeah.
He built out the studio for himself to record.
It's awesome too.
It's so cool. I wish you all can take a tour, but we are sitting in the podcast studio at the Hideout, and it is this vibe
Yeah.
that is the history of Nashville, I think. And if you're an artist and you want to record, or if you want to get your photo done,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a lot going on here, and there's a lot of history, and you can only sense a little bit from looking at the camera.
Yeah. A lot
Yeah.
of textures. I mean, the
Right?
studio's amazing. There's a lot of opportunities to create stuff in here.
Yeah, and
It's
I think
cool.
you totally match. You totally match
Thank
this
you.
whole vibe, right?
I wish I could say I planned it, but
I know,
didn't
who
know.
knew? But I mean, speaking of, Nashville, I think for many of you who know you, knew you before Nashville, but having been here for the past 10 plus years, what does it mean for you to be kind of hanging out in history?
It's cool.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm so fortunate to find myself in these positions sometimes where I'm like, wait, I need to take a second and realize where I am right now. I've played the Opry and the Ryman and these like historical
Amazing.
places here that I have to make sure I remind myself what's happening. So it's cool to be here.
Yeah, I so appreciate you being here, Cassadee. And I
course.
know a lot of people are like, oh my goodness, we're going to talk about culture.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you going to get someone who is an icon in pop culture and country culture and I'd say pop punk and emo, like all of that, like how does that also apply into communities in the workplace? And I know we'll get there. So for
Yeah.
everyone, just as a reminder, if this is your first time watching or listening to a CultureCast, it is about meeting with phenomenal leaders across industries, talking about your story and your experience and how you got your pathway to success, but in doing so, the environments that you created to help bring others along. And I think in what you do as an artist, there's so many applications as I just nerd out about you and your background and how you've done that. And so before we jump into Hey Monday, like before the very beginning,
Yeah.
like let's just hear your story. Like how did you get onto this pathway of becoming an artist? So
Oh, wow.
talk about growing up, like all of that.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in West Palm Beach, Florida. My sister took voice lessons,
Oh,
and she's almost 4 years older than I am. She had to stop taking them for a few weeks because she had her adenoids removed, so
oh
she had to
no.
heal.
Yeah.
But the voice coach that was teaching her was traveling from Jacksonville to West Palm Beach to teach her, and she had other students there as well. So she was like, "Well, Cassidy, would you want to take her place for a few weeks and see if you like it?" And so I did. I fell in love. I was 4 years old. I was like,
You were 4 years old taking voice lessons?
yeah.
Okay.
That was
That's
when
adorable, actually. Yeah.
I sounded like a chipmunk. If you think I have a high voice now,
Yeah.
just imagine. And I just was like, I fell in love with it. I kept doing it. Fast forward years later, the rock scene in West Palm Beach was just so fun, and
Yeah.
we had so many great local bands and a lot of bands that were coming through, like major label bands coming through to these tiny venues in West Palm. So I fell in love with rock music because I actually grew up singing country.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Okay.
So like the first genre I learned to sing on was country. And then the band thing started and I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, bands are cool. I love
Yeah.
rock music, and Avril was huge and I was like, I want to be her.
Yes. Right.
And then got into the band thing, started a band at the time called Blake, which is my middle name. And
Oh, odd because that comes in later in your
I
life.
know. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
It's very weird. And when that band got discovered, we were at a music conference in Atlanta. At the time, I was 16. And we got discovered by an A&R from Columbia. And he came down, scouted us in West Palm. We played a couple of shows there. Decided he wanted to fly us to New York City to showcase for Columbia.
At 16 years old.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
And I actually, side note, went to the same conference a year earlier and got signed to a development deal at 15
Oh,
that
geez.
didn't go quite
Okay.
well, so I got out of that. But the real achievement was the next one, and we ended up making some member changes in the band because there were a couple members in Blake that my managers at the time like put in the band that I was like, oh, I don't know them, like this is weird, I want to play in the
Oh.
band with my friends, and they turned out to not be great managers. So
Oh, no.
yeah, like a lawsuit and stuff happened.
That's not
I
good.
know.
Right?
I feel like I've lived 10 lives. But so I ended up that Columbia were like, put the rest of the band together and we're gonna do this. And so hit up a couple people from my high school that I was friends with,
Yeah.
and we did the band. We went to New York City, did our album. We called it Hey Monday, and
Yeah.
we toured. We got signed also to Pete Wentz's label. From Fall Out Boy,
Yeah.
he has a label called Decadence. So Columbia and Decadence did a thing for us. Fall Out Boy took us on like a world tour. We toured
Yes.
for like 2 years straight. The third year we were a band were when things started to kind of fall apart. Our record label A&R left. We got a new label president. People weren't as excited about us. We weren't getting many tours.
Yeah.
The actual like pop punk scene, like
Yep.
the emo scene at the time was starting to kind of fizzle out. Things were changing.
Yeah.
And so I left. I was like, I'm going to go solo. I'm going to see if I can do this on my own. Moved to LA at 20 years old
Oh, wow.
from West Palm. Um,
That's a big change.
really
Yeah,
big
I
change.
grew up in LA, so I
Oh,
mean, yeah. But
it
the
was,
whole
yeah.
562 Long Beach scene still kind of played into that whole pop punk, I think.
For
Like there's
sure.
right?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I
Yeah.
mean, one of my favorite bands, Blink 182, is from
Yes.
San Diego. So, like, I mean, California has, I think, don't they, isn't Taking Back Sunday from
I
there as
think
well?
so. I think so. Yeah.
Some of my favorite bands. So, yeah, going to LA, pursuing a solo thing. The first year I was there didn't go well. A lot of people from the Hey Monday days said they'd help me out and they didn't. So I kind of got ghosted by a bunch of people.
When you brought them into the Hey Monday to begin with after Blake, which is wild. What's
Ye-
up with that?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, like label people and other
Okay.
managers
Yeah.
who were like, yeah, come to LA and I'll help you out. And then they didn't. So
Mhm.
that was tough. But The Voice approached me to audition because they scout people all the time.
Yeah.
And they had heard that I left the band. They asked me to do it the year before, and I said no because I was still in the band and I didn't want to do the voice. So fast
Oh.
forward a year later, I went solo. I was struggling. I was broke. It was a really hard time, and I was like, fine, I'll do it. And I won. My
Amazing.
coach was Blake
I
Shelton.
know, and actually everyone wanted to be your coach, right? Like everyone turned for
Yeah,
you.
that was
Yeah.
wild. That was crazy. And
Yeah.
everyone thought I was going to choose Adam because he's in a band and I come from a
Yeah.
band. But I didn't choose Blake because of the genre that he did. I chose him because of how he coached his artists.
Yes.
He was always letting people do their thing. He
Yep.
was like he would advise you, but he wouldn't have you do some song that you've never heard of, or that like that's not the genre that I want to do. Why are you making me sing?
Yeah.
He let people be comfortable, which is like
Well,
what
I
I
think
wanted to do.
the way I saw it, I know I'm a nerd. I'm going to say this about The Voice. I remember when it first came out because you were early on, like you were talent that came on. I think it was like two or three
Season
seasons.
3.
Okay, season three.
Mhm.
That's when like The Voice really was becoming huge.
It was
So
crazy.
it's interesting hearing your story, which I do want to unpack a little bit before we jump into, this amazing coach that you had at The Voice who what I saw him do with you and with others, it's like choose something that you like and
Mhm.
regardless of genre, but make it your own,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like and the personality of who that artist is kind of came through and that's kind of what it looked like with
Yeah.
him. And as much as he joked around about, being a country boy, whatever,
Yeah.
he's such a good human being and you can see that. Yeah.
He just kind of nurtures and he helps create a space for you to feel safe in, and I chose every song that I did except for one he chose for me called Stand by Rascal Flatts because
Yeah.
it was like a part of the show, like the coach gets to choose a
Yeah.
song.
Yeah. Yeah.
But everything else I chose myself, and you're right, he totally let me take the reins and do my thing with all the songs, which is was so important to me coming from a band where I wrote everything. I'm an artist. I
Yeah.
write my songs, and now I'm on a show where I'm singing covers. Like it
That's
was
hard.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
was like any opportunity I could show my artistry I took. So after the show came to Nashville, I had the choice to either
Oh.
do pop or country.
Oh, you did?
I
Okay.
did.
So how did you lean back into country, I guess?
I
Because
know.
the
That was
first
hard.
genre was country.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
know that.
My
I didn't know that.
first
Yeah.
yeah, and people didn't, and they were really confused when I went
Yeah.
country, but I chose country because it was 2012 when I won. What was happening in Nashville was so
Yeah.
cool to me. That was when Florida Georgia Line was blowing up.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift was going pop. The band Perry had crossed over with If I Die
Yeah.
Young. And all these people, by the way, were on the label that I would be on if I went
Okay.
country. So I was like, I'm going to Nashville. And in pop, there was like a kind of a dance thing happening, and I've never really done the
Yeah.
dance. I'm not like a dance artist,
Yeah.
so I didn't see myself in that genre. So I came to Nashville, and it was great for like a year. I was kind of the new shiny thing,
Yeah.
and the label were really excited. The first song did really well, and then when it was time to have the second single, it didn't go quite as fast because
Yeah.
I wasn't the new winner from The
Yeah. Yeah.
Voice.
Yeah. Right.
At country radio, it wasn't like it didn't fly up the chart like the first one did. So it started to become this really tough environment for me, kind of
Hmm.
being questioned by of the team about like, why am I not working? Why is this not working?
Yeah.
And maybe it's her voice, maybe it's the songs, and it started to really be tough. So there was a good 2 years around that after that first year, and like 2014 15, where I didn't release new music and I was just kind of stuck and like shelved basically.
Wow. I think though that happens not just
Hmm.
for artists, but I think where people are in their journey and wherever they are in their career, sometimes you have to take a pause
Yeah.
to then get grounded back into who you are and what you're all about to then release that energy that is you. But I want to go back to
Hmm.
how groundbreaking I think about culture in general.
Hmm.
So I think I told you I grew up in LA and all of my career I've worked in these very large companies.
Yeah.
And I remember early on for me, I worked at I'm not going to say the name, but a Fortune 25 company. And I'm like, wow, if this is what it's like to work in corporate America, I never want to work for a large company again
Yeah.
because it's such a weird culture. And
Yeah.
like the way I felt like I was treated being young and new in my career, also not looking like anybody else
Hmm.
because of, my hair color, skin color, whatever.
Hmm.
And then like, of course, I've always liked to express myself the way I dress, and there's always a way too. You have to dress and act a certain way,
Sure.
And so I learned that growing up, and it's all the stereotypical things. I'll bring up the word diversity in the very obvious way, but I feel like in business in general, and you've been in the music business,
Mm.
I think to be a female anything, breaking through and leading,
Mm.
which is what you did. So let's just go all the way back. All right. So
Mm.
pop punk,
Yeah.
Hey Monday, okay, this is a mainstream in culture band, the only other kind of female led pop punk band. There was another one, right? Paramore, right? And you.
Yeah.
So what's that like to kind of set that scene in an industry? And again, I don't know since I didn't grow up in it, but probably not unlike what corporations were. Growing up was very male dominated.
It
So
was.
what was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think because I hadn't done any sort of soul searching. I
Yeah.
was 18 when I was like actually on the road and when I was surrounded by all these boys, and I was before I really was I don't know, before I thought critically, because I hadn't done the looking inward and being like, I shouldn't be ashamed of being a woman out here
Yeah.
with these guys. I shouldn't also feel special that I'm the only woman out here with these guys. That should make me mad. Like I wasn't thinking that way.
Yeah.
And so when I was younger, I was just like, this is cool. I must be special because
Yeah.
I'm the only girl out here.
Yeah.
But then I would also, in the same breath, get kind of annoyed when I would be compared to Haley Williams because we were different, but it was such an easy comparison because
Sure.
we're both women and
And the only really out there.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
we were the only ones, like a couple of the only ones that were being embraced, but there were so many. Like We Are the In Crowd, they had a female fronted singer. They Pretty Reckless, Versa Emerge, Automatic Love Letter. Like there were a lot, but they just, and I think there's a level of that still happening now where
Yeah.
they focus on like a couple at a time, and I felt like I might have been one of those at that
Yeah.
moment, and I didn't have the skills or the mindset of like this is wrong.
Yeah.
Because I would be asked weird things like, what's the most embarrassing girl thing that's happened to you on tour? It's like, what?
Right.
What do you mean, like girl thing?
Right.
Like, what do you just ask what's the most embarrassing thing in general?
Yes.
So I'd get questions like that would tilt my head a little bit, but I just didn't have the critical thinking yet. And yeah, I mean, I felt a tremendous amount of pressure to not be too high maintenance, to be one of the guys, to not cause too much of a fuss. And a lot of it has to do with my upbringing. And just, I went to a Catholic school growing up, and my dad left when we were
Yeah.
really young. So like there were a lot of things that contributed to that, but it was weird. And now it's like a whole other person, but I feel like I'm way more equipped to lead
Right.
now.
Well, I think it's interesting that you raised that because you're right. I think out of two women who were young women who were significantly in the scene, and it was a much broader scene. But
Mm-hmm.
again, you're talking to someone who is like, okay, mainstream, and I can see that, right? And not
Totally.
everyone else sees that.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up a terminology that became super popular after the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and diversity became big, at least in corporations back in 2020, not too long ago,
Mm.
with the microaggressions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, oh, well, what's your most embarrassing female thing? You're like, what are you talking about, right? So I think, for those of you who still are trying to understand the definition of that, it's like when you have this assumption or characteristic about a person, culture, whatever that you think and you kind of force that onto somebody in,
Mm-hmm.
that innocent question,
Yeah.
right? That's considered a microaggression, people.
And it just
So
kind of
yeah,
reminds you like, you see, you're aware that I'm like the only woman out here right now.
yeah,
And now I'm reminded of that, and now I'm like, oh, I'm othered. I'm uncomfortable right
yeah.
now.
But I think
So,
it's so interesting because I think early days you were able to kind of pave the way to make it um, more acceptable, especially in a genre like pop punk, to that it's normal for many women to be leading, like the lead singers
yeah.
in these bands and the writer, all of that. Like
Mm-hmm.
that, I think there's so many parallels to business and
Yeah.
how, and I know it's just more mainstream today. There's more women in the C-suite, et cetera. Like the percentages are getting better, but
Mm-hmm.
are they as quickly, right? So,
Right. Yeah, and I think like the numbers are obviously important, but like the conversations I feel like
yes.
need to get better because I mean I love statistics. I can't ignore the
Yeah.
numbers, but yeah, I mean like there are still microaggressions happening, and just in general there are still um, people aren't being intentional with who they're employing or who they're giving the opportunities to lead, and I see it in like not Kevin Lineman because he's amazing, but certain
Right.
festival promoters, there'll be like one or two women on these festivals. It's just like you can try harder. I think you can
Absolutely.
find more
Right.
women to put on that bill.
I agree. It's so funny. I feel like you and I were having the same conversation. I was being interviewed about like when this law passed
Mm.
for NASDAQ traded companies where they had to have at 30%, women on boards.
Mm.
And there was this information out there that, oh, well, they're not available, right? And I was on a major show, I'll just say that. And they were interviewing me and they're like, so what do you think, Marisa? And I'm like, I don't buy that at all.
Yeah.
They are available. You need to think harder about who your networks are.
Yeah.
And you need to, the word you used, be more intentional
Mm-hmm.
about your actions. Like if
Yeah.
you're committed to that, then do that. And so
Yeah.
it's funny that you say that because they are that. And by the way, shout out to Kevin Lyman. So we were
Ugh.
all getting ready, just everyone. And I
He's
need
the
to read the
best.
comments, but like
Oh
the
yeah.
funny thing is that, of course, I just feel like when you run into people, then of course you know other people. And what I mean by that is Kevin Lyman's such a good person. And for those
Mm-hmm.
of you who aren't familiar, although you should be, he founded the Warped Tour. Like he created that.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I start off with, and the most important thing is like he's a good human being
Yeah.
means that you're going to run into other good human beings. And I also don't want to lose track of Blake Shelton because I think there's so many applications too with your experience on
Yeah.
The Voice and how he brought the best out of the human that he was coaching. So
Yeah.
say more about that because I think there's some great lessons learned from that on how if you're a manager of people or a leader of a large organization, implications for that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So say more about
For
that
sure.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just the way that he was when the cameras were off too. That is what stuck with me the most.
Yeah.
He's like I said before, very nurturing, but I opened up on the show about my relationship with my dad, and it was I was met with a lot of just the reception was
Yeah.
pretty crazy because a lot of people are going through that or have been through that, and then I have this coach who's almost like paternal,
Yeah.
and so it was like this very cathartic kind of
Yeah.
experience of being able to confide in him about it, and in America, even though I
Yeah.
was like talking into a camera and it didn't register how crazy that is.
Yeah.
um
Everyone's in your business. Like
yeah.
they know what's up. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the Voice, they caught me on a day where I was especially sleep deprived, and they were like,
Oh, yeah.
"Is there anything about your life that you want to share that maybe
Oh,
people might
no.
connect with?" And like, we're just trying to help you here. Like, maybe
Yeah.
share some more of your story. And I was like, "Damn it, okay." And then I just started talking about it, and next thing I know, it's like my major storyline. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Oh, great."
Yeah.
Because before that, it had been about Hey Monday and me
Yeah.
leaving. So Blake was so important in that situation because I had a hand to hold during that,
Yeah.
and I also Blake was amazing, and I'm not trying to diminish him at all, but like also Carson Daly. People
Oh,
don't
wow. Yeah.
realize.
The host,
People
right?
don't realize that guy, he'll come next to you, he'll put his arm around you, he'll just in between commercial breaks, he'll be like, "You good? Are you right? You okay? You're doing great." Like, and he'll come back and
Amazing.
talk to all of us. Like, that's also another person that people don't realize is so important, and like a milestone in that, and not a
Yeah.
milestone, but the thing, the
Like a
a
foundation, like an
foundation,
anchor,
yeah,
right?
of that show.
Yeah.
It's like it's pretty amazing that how his effect and the whole situation. So those two were really important for me during like talking about
Yeah.
that difficult situation.
Well, I think it's really interesting that you raise that because I think about the applications to being a manager or a leader and the importance of really seeing and hearing people for who they are,
Mm-hmm.
and if whether you manage one person or you might lead thousands of people, however large your organization is, the beauty of that and really understanding their story is what you're saying. Like, if I think
Yeah.
about how, first of all, you were vulnerable enough, and I got that you were sleep deprived, but to share that, right? And that you had a manager, I'm going to call Blake your manager, but he
Sure.
was your coach, right? To actually lean into that
Mhm.
and care about that is what is driving your emotion, your core at that point,
Mhm.
and really in connecting to that, helping to bring the best out of you at the
Yeah.
same time,
For
right?
sure. And there were a lot of moments too where even just to like more aesthetic things like I don't know, man, like I don't know if you need to be showing that much skin. Like people are like really connecting with you, and there's like women that are looking up to you and stuff, and
Yes.
like it's like I don't know, like you do that once you've like done your own career and you do whatever you want. But like if you're trying to win, maybe just like play the game just a tiny bit with like what you're wearing, just so you don't like throw
Oh,
people off
I've
a bit.
always had that question. I'm going to ask you anyway. So,
Yeah.
like, did you get to choose what you wanted to wear? Or did they coach you on what you were going to wear
I
on
got
the,
to choose everything.
okay.
The only time I didn't was, and I'll admit, it was a very risque shirt. It was like a bra with fringe, and my whole stomach was out, and it was
Oh,
just,
no.
it didn't, it kind of was like out of left field, honestly. I mean, I wasn't dressing like
Yeah.
that really. I have wear short skirts and
Yeah.
stuff, but it was a bit much for me. I mean, I wouldn't wear that now
Yeah.
even. And he was, and it just took him back because I think he was like, we all know you as this person and
Yeah.
everyone's falling in love with that person, and this is showing a different side of you, which is cool, but
Yeah.
maybe if you want to just stay on the track you're on,
Right.
let's win this thing. But yeah, I got to, and I got to wear whatever I wanted. The wardrobe team actually made a few custom pieces for me
Oh, that's awesome.
in the finale episode, or the last couple of episodes. I was the only girl, so I got to like I got all of the stuff. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
wasn't sharing, the gown selection with
Yeah,
another
you didn't have to like
female. And
compete for I want that
yeah.
versus that, right?
Yeah, it was like kind of crazy that I got like first pick of all the cool
That's
clothes.
amazing. So
Yeah,
it is a form of self-expression too in terms
for
of what you
sure.
got to wear, except for that one questionable fringe bra that you had to wear. What's
Yeah.
up with that? Did someone just say wear this? Like,
No,
yeah.
I saw it in the wardrobe room,
Okay.
and I was like, "Oh, forget it. I'm going to wear it." And then I
Yeah.
got to the stage and people were like, "Oh, um
Right.
it's like network TV." So
Yeah.
there's that. But I'm glad that they kind of got me to change my mind about that.
I love that. And then I do want to highlight Carson too. I'm so glad you brought him up
Yeah.
and that whole role again. I'll say as a manager or a leader too, coming alongside,
Mhm.
your colleague. It doesn't matter who they are. Again, they don't have to be a peer. They can be someone who works with you or on your team and just checking in like that.
Mhm.
And that, I mean, that um, just being present
Mhm.
and just saying, how you doing? I've got you, like in between takes or during commercial break or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, I think if you play that out in creating cultures inside organizations and in companies, just how important that is, not only for a leader to do that, but for each other on
Yeah.
teams, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and just to be able, like, even just the fact of like remembering people's names. I mean, I
Yes.
feel like that guy probably meets so many people and
Yeah.
tons of contestants. I mean, they do 2 seasons a year now. So I'm just like, how do you even remember all of us, let alone like check in and have the bandwidth to,
Yeah.
oh, I've got to read the teleprompter in like 5 seconds, but I'm going to check in with you right before. It's so cool. And I grew up watching him on TRL, so
Well, right?
huge
Little
fan.
MTV
Yeah.
OG as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we also had that connection too because I never was on TRL with Hey Monday, but he heard of Hey Monday and
That's
knew
awesome.
about
Yeah.
us and stuff. So like there was that connection of coming from we're both like emo kids and stuff. So there was that too. But yeah, I mean, I think all it takes is just the effort and
Yeah.
just the thought. And even if it wasn't like, where he's connecting physically and putting his arm on my shoulder and just being like, "You
Yeah.
good?"
Yeah.
Even if it was just a look over, like, "Good to see you," that would have been fine too. But like something to just
Yeah.
to acknowledge that I'm a human being right here going through something crazy, and you're acknowledging that. That was just amazing.
Yeah, I think that's such an amazing story that you share. And I think segue a little bit to today and the environment today when people go out into the world and they're trying to make a living, they're doing their hustle, right, working. And I was having dinner, and she's a friend you haven't met, but her name is Dina Kaplan. She had been on CultureCast. She's a meditation guru, just such a
Ooh,
kind person, like the
cool.
nicest person. And one of the things we always talked about during COVID, and then she always quotes me back to me, she's like, because she goes, how do you support an organization where you have hundreds of thousands of employees?
Mm.
It's a lot, and no one knows what's going on. At least we didn't back in 2020. And I said, I think at the end of the day, it's a mental game. Like, it's a mental game
Mm.
in terms of yourself and all of these inputs coming in the world. What do you believe? What do you not believe? But it's all in how you choose to respond to all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, back then when we were all learning our way through this thing called COVID, and now it's an endemic, not pandemic kind of thing that people can get now, like the flu or whatever. I
Yeah.
don't mean to say whatever, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
But then she said, we just saw her a couple of days ago, and she said, now more than ever, and she coaches a lot of global CEOs on, meditation
Yeah.
and what companies are going through today. And she goes, now more than ever, it's more of a mental game to actually get through post, right? Like now,
Right.
because of just, what people bring into the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I think, and I'll nerd for a little bit, but I'll toss it back to you. Like, when people ask the question, which should sound like such an old question right now, do we go back to the office 1 to 5 days a week? Right. So
Yeah.
there's that. And then,
Right.
like, why you do that, et cetera, and the why. But then there's this new level of mental wellness that I think needs to be happening, that now going back as a leader, that's another thing. I think also emotional, mental well-being,
Mm.
that like leaders now need to be in tune with now more than ever.
Yeah.
It's not just good enough. Sorry, leaders, to be a full on subject matter expert with experience in what you do, whatever your function is.
Yeah.
But I think the gift of being an amazing leader and creating amazing culture is actually being in tune with that, like
Yeah.
the emotional and mental well being of others. So,
Yeah.
how do you react to that when I
Oh
say
my
that,
God.
right?
I love
Yeah.
everything you're
Yeah.
saying. I mean, I know we spoke about it a
Yeah.
tiny bit beforehand, but like I 100% agree. You can lead a team and
Yeah.
be um sort of flailing mentally and not really you don't know yourself. You haven't confronted traumas, you haven't figured out
Yeah.
what you believe in. You can do it, and it's going to be a workplace. It's not probably not going to be a very kind, warm environment. It's
Yeah.
probably going to be a little sterile, probably going to be maybe a little volatile, depending on how you handle stress. But if you figure things out within yourself, and you don't no one's perfect.
Yeah.
Like you're no one.
Well, everyone's human.
Yeah, you're
Hello. Yeah.
human. Like you're not every CEO is going to be some enlightened,
Yeah.
person, but like if you've done the work and you've really looked within yourself, you know what triggers you, because I think a lot of times, I mean, and I know this just from experience before therapy, when I was when I was younger and I was on tour and I was like, where am I? I'm in Japan. This is crazy. I'm 18. I I would get triggered by things that someone in my band would do or say,
Yeah.
and I would act out, and be, I wouldn't know how to reel myself back in, because I had these things with like
Yeah.
my parents' divorce and whatever,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
things from my childhood. And now that I've confronted all of that, I feel like I can be a better leader, and I can be empathetic, and I can also have boundaries. That's another thing. And I know I'm like going on a tangent here,
No,
but
go.
I
Yeah.
do I do feel like sometimes people, bosses and whoever, they don't have boundaries with their employees, and it doesn't mean you can't be friends and just like check in on people, but you can't lean on them to take care of you and your mental health.
Yeah.
They can't be your substitute dad or your
That's right.
substitute, significant other. You have they at the end of the because at the end of the day, they can go and leave and work for someone else.
Yeah.
And while that would suck and hurt your feelings, your world shouldn't crumble because of it.
Right.
It should be like, I understand you're growing your business or whatever, and good luck with everything. So it's just like getting your head straight, and at least being on the path to becoming a more fulfilled human being
Yeah.
and just knowing who you are, I feel like it will make your workplace and your team happier.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know you and I kind of touched on this a little bit before we went on air, but I think about, you know, I've had the chance to support all these organizations and have these crazy brands and amazing cultures. But at the end of the day, it's personal.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, it really starts with me, with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who am I and what do I believe in?
Yeah.
And, what do I stand for? And everyone knows these statistics, especially those of you who are here on LinkedIn. And I know I
Mm-hmm.
can't read all of the comments that are coming up, but like, I think, what's driving this next generation that is already in the workplace, the Gen Z, and now Gen
Mm-hmm.
Alpha is coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and even the millennial generation.
A
Right? So you think about that, and it is about this purpose driven, right? That it's like not just does the company have a great purpose, but do I believe in it?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that belief again starts with self belief and like, what are your values and what you're all about, is that tied to this organization? Because if so, great, that's in sync.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you can help unlock that in people, I agree with you. You're not going to play I'm not going to play the role of mom or dad to
Yeah.
somebody, but what I can be is a good human being
Yeah.
and be aware that not only are they bringing their skills to bear, their thinking, great thinking into the organization, but they're bringing their overall emotional, mental well being.
Yeah.
And so, and
For
I think
sure.
that's really important that, and I'm glad that you kind of pointed that out because it's wild today. I'll tangent a little bit, I'll go with you, but like, I don't get it. I was again going back to my friend Dina. We were having dinner and I go, "Yeah, it's weird. It's even socially weird today. Think about like the workplace and whether the workplace is virtual or
Mm-hmm.
you're in person occasionally, you're dealing with this kind of mental wellness that needs to emotional wellness as well that needs to happen.
Yeah.
But I think people have gotten more socially awkward
Yeah.
over the last couple of years, right?
For sure. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
something. I think people. Uh, I don't know. Like, I think people worry about how they're seen by the other person in the situation sometimes. Because I know, thinking back,
Yeah.
when I felt like, oh, that wasn't like my best interaction with someone. That was like those times where I was in my head, or I'm backstage at um um a awards
Yeah.
show, and I'm like, oh my god, wait, where do I have to be, where do I have to be, and then my interaction wasn't great with somebody and it was
Yeah.
on me. Like, I feel like people sometimes do that, or they're just not talking to you for the right reasons, and it's like, what can
Right.
I get from you,
Yeah,
which
I
isn't good.
know. Yeah, I'll share this really quick story, and it does relate because I've also experienced the same feeling in the workplace, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were in New York, and I see that Roger is on here, my friend Roger. What's going on, dude?
Hey.
Anyway, he was here at the same thing that we were at, and it was a mixed group of friends. So my husband and I, Michael, we had our friends, and then our friends had their friends there, and some of them didn't know each other,
Yeah.
and so we come across someone I didn't know, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he didn't know me clearly, and he was like, "Oh, well, I want some champagne." And for those of you who know me, I love champagne. That's like my thing. And I thought, well, there's going to be a lot of people. Let's go ahead and order a bottle, and that way we'll never run out, right? Like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And if someone wants some, they are more than welcome, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, this dude walks up. I won't say his name. Walks up and he goes, "Well, I'm going to have some of that champagne." And the server was amazed. She goes, "Well, this is actually Marissa's champagne, but let me ask her, right?" So I'm standing right next to him and I go, "Oh, yeah, I did get a bottle of champagne, but if you'd like some, you are more than welcome." And I said, "Go ahead and get him, like, pour him a glass, right?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She pours the glass. And then I look to at least have a minute or two conversation with him because I'd never met him.
Yeah.
Because he goes, "I'll have the group champagne." She says, "This is not group champagne." And so he gets a glass and he thanks her. And so he's about to walk away. And I'm like, "Hey, dude, what's your name?" Right? So he tells me his name. And I'm like, "Oh, how do you know our friends?" It was just so uncomfortable. And he, like, it couldn't even stick around for a minute or two to have a
Wow.
conversation. Not that I'm saying, "Hey, thank me," but like, I think that's odd,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
odd. And though,
Especially after finding out that you're paying for the bottle, and
yeah.
it's like, yeah, you can have some of the bottle I bought.
Right. And so I share that very mainstream story. And you're right. Now I've got to consider the shoes he was walking in, and I will give some grace
Ah,
that maybe it was an awkward moment for him. Right. And
it
he
could
was
have
like, I don't even
been.
know what to say about this. But
Yeah.
then I think I have seen that play over in the workplace. Not that we're serving champagne to each other in the workplace, unless we're Kate Spade, because that was a thing. Um, but like,
Sounds fun.
I think, yeah, I think that's what's showing up today.
Yeah.
Like so forget the champagne part, but this whole how are people connecting?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I've seen it too, and the only thing
Yeah.
that I can think of is we've had a weird couple of years,
Yeah.
3 years. We rely on social media and our devices more than ever, and I don't know, maybe people who had an issue with social awareness before
Yeah.
COVID, maybe the lockdown and stuff made it worse or something. I don't know, but I've seen it too,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate. Like I think I've gotten better at meeting people and realizing, oh, okay, there might be like neurodivergence, like that kind of thing. Like
Yes.
that, there's stuff at play that I am not educated on that I've learned about over the years that I'm like, okay, that person's not being cold towards me. This is their
Yes.
baseline. This is where they live. So, like, I'm just not going to take it personally. And so that's been helpful for me. But there are still times where I have an interaction and I'm like, well, that wasn't very nice.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you though. I'm glad you brought that up, the whole neurodivergence, neurodiversity.
hmm
I had a former colleague of mine, she's kind of gone off on her own, and then she wrote this amazing article on neurodiversity.
Mm,
And I know that she lives with it, but then she brought that into the workplace and what people need to be considering. And
yeah.
you're spot on in terms of like, oh, people need to understand that everyone doesn't react just like you.
Yeah.
They don't think process exactly just like you.
hmm
And I think you're raising a good kind of another theme around inclusiveness,
Yeah.
right? And
hmm
how that I think is so important in culture these days, especially with the weird few years that we've all been through, like what it means to be inclusive. And I heard this amazing story about you, and I'm going to share it with you now. So, I work with a friend that you know, Portia,
hmm
and she met you at emo night Brooklyn. I think you guys were in LA, and
Yeah.
no, or maybe you were somewhere else. I
I
don't know
think
if it
we were in
was in
LA.
LA. Okay,
Yeah.
and how one of your fans like
Mm.
showed up with his
Mhm.
mother, right? And
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think he was on the spectrum. I'm assuming he was,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And how he is a big Cassadee Pope like country fan, and here he is at emo night.
Yeah.
Didn't care the genre, but he cared because you were there,
Yeah.
right? And the fact that he and his mom found you, and the graciousness and the kindness that I heard, that you were just like so present, so engaged,
Mm.
with him.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's another lesson in just human decency, but also bring that into the workplace.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
whole presence, and you didn't know him from anyone other than he knew you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
I don't know. I mean, I think obviously I'm not like I don't run an office and
yeah,
stuff. So
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
different, but like I do try to make sure that I'm whatever the environment is at my shows, I don't have a lot of control over an emo night
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or people's accessibility to getting in the show and stuff, but I really hope that my music is accessible and I'm accessible to any type of fan, like any type of person.
Yeah.
So I don't see like I don't have interactions with people that come to my shows who might not be as socially outgoing
Yeah.
as I am. I don't see them as weird or like, oh, I don't want to talk to this person. It's just like there are people that are different than you out there. And you just,
Yes.
like once you just realize that and you realize, oh, I don't know all the different types of people there could be. I haven't even scratched the surface
Yeah.
probably. Then you have empathy and you just like, I don't know, just cool. I met a new person.
Right.
It's
I
a
love
new,
it.
different person,
I think it's this whole notion of inclusivity, and I'm going to take it further too. I love talking about co-creation in culture and how you invite others. And I thought you did a really cool thing. I don't think your new song is out yet, but I saw that you did a cool thing where you invited people to write handwritten letters. Like,
Yes.
can you talk about their experience as it relates to recovery? And so,
Mhm.
can you share more about that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That was so it's funny that song was going to come out this year, but I've nudged it to next year, but
Okay.
it's I
Okay.
mean it's fine cuz like
Yeah.
I've obviously asked people to write in about it, but I'm really excited about this song and it's such a dear song to my heart. It's about being the person that's watching a loved one just kind of spiral
Yeah.
and struggle with addiction. And so I asked people to send me handwritten notes of their experience. It's either your struggle with addiction, a family member, a friend, maybe you've lost someone, maybe you're in recovery. Like,
Yeah.
and I got like 100 letters,
Amazing.
which was awesome. And I printed them out. They're gonna be in a music video that I shot,
No
and
way.
it's just it was like it was really therapeutic for me to get these notes in because I've had people in my life that I love that have struggled with that and substance abuse. So I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. And some of the stories were so heartbreaking, and all of them were, but some more than others that I just like, man, I feel lucky that I have this
Yeah.
person still in my life that struggles with it, but some people can't say the same. So that was really special to be able to like, I don't know, feel like I'm less alone, but also like get to know my fans on a deeper
Yes.
level.
Yep.
Like at a meet and greet for, 2 minutes you're talking to someone, rarely do they bring up their mother who
Yeah.
overdosed when they were younger or whatever. Like rarely do they bring up something like that. And so I felt like, wow, this is a really special opportunity to get to know people more.
That's really cool. And I love, I'll highlight the co creation, the fact that you're inviting people into your creative process, right? So
Mm.
you're here, you are, um, you've written a song, which now will come out next year, and you've invited people to tell their stories. Would they feel like they're part of helping to shape this creation of yours, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important too. And I think about culture
Mm.
and how when you invite people just to share what they think and what their experience is, and although all of it may not show up, the fact that they are listened to, like that they're heard
Yeah.
and that they feel included and, oh, I'm going to be part of this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the whole notion of the invitation to do that,
Mm-hmm.
I think the key to co-creation. Like it's not
Yeah.
going to happen on its own. As a leader, you're going to do that. And so I thought that's a cool application, seeing it from your eyes, but then how you as leaders can
Mm.
also do that. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
realizing I'm just trying to make sure that we are tracking with comments and with time. So I'm hoping someone can just let us know how we're doing.
Yeah,
Um,
how we doing here?
yeah.
I
Oh, Trisha
love.
Fullett, look
Oh,
at this.
oh, that's okay. I love that. I love hearing that Blake is a kind human being, like we see. Also, Carson Daly. I
Oh,
remember watching Cassie on The Voice and loved her season.
oh
Thank
my God,
you.
everyone loves you.
Oh.
Um, and I want to say too, and I want to jump into kind of coming back to your roots, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's all in this theme of being clear about who you are. And I think it's really important. Let's talk about like what's going on next with you and how
Mm.
you're already back into your roots, like the
Yeah.
decision to do that, how you're feeling about that, what's going on. So tell
I
me that.
oh my god, I
Yeah.
feel so at home, so excited. I just feel like it's a part of me has been unlocked again because
Okay.
I was 18 when I was doing this genre,
Yeah.
and now I'm 34,
Yeah.
and so it's obviously different.
Yeah.
But I'm reconnecting with that girl who was just so excited, and I've been excited through different times of my career, but it has, I'll be honest, been a minute since I've been like rejuvenated and refreshed
Oh, wow.
and that it's felt new because I did country music for 10 years, while a lot of people would say that's not that long. For me it was because I've been
Yeah.
and
A
doing
third
music.
of your life.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
And just I've been like doing music professionally for more than half my life. So and I think what made me change and go back to my roots with pop punk is it was gradual. It wasn't just one thing. It was a
Yeah.
lot of things. The pendulum swings in country music every so often, and it's swinging in a direction I'm not crazy about.
Yeah. Okay.
So just stylistically, and also just like culturally, it feels like it's become a bit more charged, and there are sectors of country music that I absolutely love that have friends and
Yeah.
musicians and artists that I love that I'm like, yes, that's the kind of country I love. But even that, like I couldn't really see myself doing the genre the way that it's going anymore.
Yeah.
It's going more traditional. It's going more um country and western they
Yeah. Yeah.
call it. So
Yeah.
I'm like I don't really see myself in that genre anymore. And since I've made the switch, there's like this thing that unlocked in my brain songwriting wise where I'm able to kind of bring in the skills that I've learned in Nashville
Yeah.
songwriting wise, but there's no barriers around them.
Yeah.
So I'm able to I can tell a story, which is what I learned here, and I can like make sense and people follow along in the story, but I can also like use words like blood,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like
Okay.
things like that I can use that you can't say that in country music.
Right.
And cuss and
Yeah.
whatever how I talk, like I
Yeah.
can sing these songs like how I speak. And in country music it can sometimes be limiting what you
I
can
hear
say,
you.
especially
Yeah.
as a woman.
Yeah.
So it feels good,
Amazing.
exciting.
And then you just had another song come out,
Mm-hmm.
Coma,
Mm-hmm.
with Taylor Acorn. Now, how do you know Taylor? Like, how did you? Because
Oh,
I'm
I love
seeing this
her.
as a reunion, right? Like,
You know what?
okay,
It's funny because I feel like I've met her in the past very very quickly and randomly,
okay,
because she had a tiny little blip of doing country music like a long time ago, and we've met a lot more since she's done the pop punk
yeah.
thing, and now that I'm doing it, we actually work with the same producer, Dan
Oh,
Swank,
wow.
and
Okay,
he does all of her stuff. So one day, I was like, to Dan, I was like, I want to write with Taylor. Like, she's so good. And we wrote Coma. It was the first session we ever did
amazing.
together. We hit it off so well. She's just a beautiful person, and we're so similar in how we navigate this
Yeah,
industry. Like, she is so kind and just chill, and it's
yeah,
like not trying to compete with people. She's just trying to do her thing and
yeah.
have fun. And we just clicked on that level. And she released the song with me not on it months ago, and it was just her,
Yeah,
and I was excited to just get a
yeah.
cut. And then she came to me and was like, would you sing on it, and I could re-release it, and it could be like both of our song.
Yes,
And I did, and it's just like really resonated and taken off, and
that's so cool.
really cool,
Yeah.
really 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 exciting.
Well, I think there's good lessons there too. I think about the role of it's not competition, although you are in the same, like, you're talent in the same space.
Sure,
And
yeah.
instead of competing, it's like, how do you elevate each other?
Yeah.
And I think that's a role that I think people can remember too,
Yeah.
especially like, I think about when more diversity is existing or becomes in the workplace, whether you're a female or, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus
Mm-hmm.
or uh, um, a certain ethnicity, like you can help elevate each other,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, and it's
Yeah.
the more we help each other out and
Yeah.
the more we elevate each other, the more people can't ignore it and the more they have to face it. Because
Yes.
it's like if we are the only girl on a tour, and don't we don't do anything with that platform, or we don't say, hey, I'll do it, but like you should really bring out another female fronted
Yeah.
band. Like, can you do that? Because that would be beneficial for all of us. Just kind of having those conversations and challenging people, it like just makes people have to pay attention,
I
you
agree.
know?
Yeah. And I think it is about make them think harder about it. You've got to ask the question and be
Yeah.
intentional. I also want to just talk about the role of music in general. And you mentioned this a few times in our conversation about how the the art that you've brought to light, in whether it's in pop punk early days, country, and now coming back into pop punk, how it resonates with people,
Mm.
right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's something about music that I think is a common denominator.
Yeah.
I don't even, I should think of a better word, but maybe not. But like, I think about the role of culture too. What is that common denominator? That
Mm.
while we're all different, that there's something that's going to rally us around something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know how you feel about that in terms of the role music plays.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, I'm there's this that saying like music is a
Yeah.
universal language. Like it's so true because I've had the opportunity to tour the world and go to
Yeah.
places where they English is not their first language, but they're
Yes.
singing every word along with me, um and they're feeling it and they're emoting, and I can tell it's touching them in such a amazing way. So I love that, and I love that, like, I don't know. I've met a couple of people throughout my
Okay.
life who are like, I don't know, music's fine. I'm not like really a big fan of music, and we didn't connect,
Okay.
as you can imagine. Which I think that's okay to not love music, but I think most people have a
Yeah.
favorite artist, a favorite band, a
Right.
favorite song, something, some sort of tether, and that is a thread through all of
Yeah.
us, and it keeps us tethered whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this before we started. It's like, what are the similarities between the two genres I've done?
Yeah.
And it is like authenticity, because pop punk, they can sniff something a mile away if you're not being real, if you're
Right.
not
Right. Right.
authentic, if you're just faking it for the trend. And same thing with country. I mean, I feel like people want to know that you're an authentic person, that you're the same person in the interviews on stage as you are with your family at home, and the stories you're telling, whether those stories to you are authentic or not, because a
Yeah.
lot of people sing outside songs.
Mm-hmm.
At least the fact that you can feel and empathize with the story you're
Yes.
telling. So I think that that's what, like, both of those genres have that
Well,
I love.
yeah, I think you're pulling out a theme though that I think is just so needed today in culture and in the working world for people who are working in organizations or large companies. It is this whole notion of authenticity,
Hmm.
and I want to recognize too what you said just before when you talked about switching back over and the lessons that you learned, especially here in the Ville, which is around the ability to tell a story.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's such a critical skill, period.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to be an artist and a singer.
Right.
However, I think in the world today, whatever it is that you're passionate about, what it is that you're doing, um, when you can tell the story from your perspective, and I'm using the authenticity word,
Hmm.
it goes much further faster
Hmm.
when you can frame it in that way. And people know you're not BSing them, right? That it's actually coming from your heart, not
Yeah.
from like, I'm making this up because I think you're going to listen to me because of this. But no, it's more about like, let me tell you a story about what's going on or
Yeah.
why we're working on this, etc., and why it's important to me. And so I
Yeah.
love that you said that because I think it's, while you learn that here in the Ville, I think it's an important lesson for anyone,
Yeah. I agree.
in
Yeah.
terms of like, whatever you want to do next, learn that too,
Hmm.
right? Does that resonate for
I
people? I'm
love
thinking.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it just reminded me. So, I actually have been in acting classes for like a year and a
Oh my
half,
goodness.
and it's
Okay.
amazing. I love it so much. And I'm pursuing acting, and when obviously there's a strike, so not the best timing, but
Yeah.
eventually. And one of the things that, as you were talking, I was like, oh my God, this totally applies to acting, is like you're gonna play a character that's like a murderer
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something that you've
Whatever.
never
Yeah.
done. Like,
Yeah.
obviously I've never killed anyone, so how am I gonna connect
Right.
with this person, and how am I going to make this performance authentic? And that is such a huge part of the work in acting too, is um, finding something that you can relate to this character. And like sometimes there's this foundation of like a serial killer, where
Yeah.
they're like, they just want to be loved, and they just want, and they obviously are, they've got some
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But the root of the reason they're doing things, and like what we strive to find in that character, is like, okay, why are they killing people? Okay, let's go with this. And then it's like, well, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I've been in positions where I've been desperate for love because of X, Y, and Z. And
Yeah.
then you're in, and then you're like, okay, I can play this character authentically. And I've just learned that over like just the course of a year and a half of these classes, and it's been so cool because
Yeah.
it's another industry where authenticity matters,
Yeah.
even if you're acting.
I agree. I think authenticity matters, period, in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you're saying this, like connecting into the why
Yeah.
and then meeting people where they're at. I know you're talking about meeting a character where they're at, but
Yeah.
like tapping into the why,
Yeah.
and especially when a lot of change is happening, I know leaders know this, but like get into the why, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then and what motivates people as well to help
Yeah.
bring them along or all come along as a group to accomplish whatever it is you're accomplishing.
Yeah, for sure.
I have two more questions. I'm realizing we're probably going to be coming towards the top of the hour.
Hmm.
One is like we've talked about so many amazing themes today that if there's like one piece of wisdom or advice that to those who are listening and watching right now, and then for those who are going to play later, and then the replay, like what advice do you want to put out there into the culture cast on like, okay, what is the one thing, if you could boil it down, that you can do to just create these amazing cultures?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this is just advice or if this
Yeah.
is just something that I did that I'm proud that I did because it made me feel uncomfortable. So I had a conversation with someone a couple of years ago about like I really want to be intentional with who I'm hiring, and I want Black musicians and
Yeah.
indigenous musicians and other people
Yes.
of color in my band and my crew, and but I don't want it to be transactional. And I feel like I don't know. I don't want it to feel like I don't want people to feel tokenized. I don't know how to
Totally.
do this.
Yeah.
And the person that I talked to, she was like, "It's okay if it's transactional at first, because honestly, people just need jobs. They need to feed their families,
I
and then
love
I
it.
promise you,
Yeah.
it won't feel like it because you're doing it out of like the goodness of your heart, and you're like going to connect with these people, and you're going to be like, wow, this is awesome." And I got access to a database of Black musicians,
Amazing.
and in Nashville, unfortunately, you have to do something like that
Yeah.
to find people, because it's like no one has Black musicians on tour and
Yeah.
country music. It's just like there's like
It's
maybe a few.
really unusual.
Really
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
unusual, which
Yeah.
is awful. So I looked at this database, looking through it, and I'm like, oh my God, like, yeah. And so I have my bass players, Carl, who's amazing, and my drummer, who is actually, he's in a band now called the Orphan the Poet, and killing it. Both Black musicians, both people I found on the database, and that I love dearly. That I'm like, oh my God, those are my guys. If they're
Yeah.
available, those are my guys. And so I guess the advice there is, even if it feels uncomfortable at first,
Yeah.
um, obviously don't do it to look better or to boast about it. But if you're doing it because you believe in anti-racism and you
Yeah.
believe in like, oh, I want to cultivate
Yes.
this community and this environment where this is normal, like Black musicians are
Yeah. Yeah.
normal, like
Right.
that,
Right.
they exist, they are the like
Yeah.
the creators of genres of music, like hello. Then it just like maybe it'll just start to be normal to
Yeah.
country crowds, and maybe more people will start to bring people on tour who don't look like them. And so it just, that felt weird at first, and then and then I actually was asked by Carl and Christian,
Yeah.
how did you find us? And I was like, well, it's a database, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, we know we're on that. We like they wouldn't have us on there if we didn't know about it. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, cool. So even if it feels new to you and feels weird and uncomfortable,
Yeah.
I still think that you should be more intentional.
I love that advice of being intentional and actually it wasn't transactional. I hear you. Your friend said, "Oh, it's going to feel transactional." But the thing is, you've now created relationships.
Mm,
This is part of um, a family or a cohort of people that you brought together and work together. So it's not like a transactional, "Oh, I'll just, one thing and then we're done."
yeah,
No, you are building and tracking with people, which I think is amazing.
yeah,
And also standing up for who you are and what you believe, right? So I think that's really
yeah,
important too, to take action and show that action.
yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
I
I
love
think
that.
yeah, you like summarized it
Yeah.
so much better than I could.
No, I'm just listening to you. And then I always like to end on like a fun fact with just culture in general. What are
Yeah.
you, Who are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you wearing? What are you eating? Like, what are you loving these days? Could be any one of those categories.
Oh, okay. I'm a sucker for Bravo TV, so I love all the
Me too. Oh my
Housewives.
gosh, me too.
Obsessed. Love it.
I mean, do you like the new New York cast, the New
I
York City? Yeah,
do.
right?
I'm like,
This
they're
is fresh
bringing it
take.
so
I
good.
think so, yeah.
All the
Anyway, yeah.
fights are like not too heavy. That's good. I love that
Yeah.
in culture. I the music side of things, I tend to I there's some new stuff that I love. Like I love Olivia Rodrigo, so I love her new album Guts.
Yes.
I love this band Water Parks. Their album Intellectual Property is great. Love Taylor Acorn, but I also kind of go backwards. I've been
Okay.
listening to. I actually just yesterday was listening to this band I Am the Avalanche that came out with this album when I was like in high school.
No
So
way.
sometimes
Yeah.
I like to get nostalgic. As far as like other cultural things, I love NPR. When
Okay.
I'm in the car, I tend to listen to that more so than music because I just get like burnt out
Yeah.
with music sometimes. Um, I love high waisted anything.
Okay,
Please no
cool.
more low waisted. I see it creeping back and I don't want it. It looks good on other people, not me.
Right?
Um, and I love avocado toast. I feel like that's
Yeah.
like been a cultural phenomenon the past
It's been
5 years,
yeah, been at least 5 years. I
at
think
least.
my favorite is where I really fell in love with it was in New York versus California.
Ah,
Yeah, there's
interesting.
this little coffee shop in Midtown called Blank Slate,
Oh,
and they have
nice.
like the best avocado toast that has a little bit of honey and a little bit of chili flakes
Oh,
on it.
see, the honey is
Right?
that's the special sauce.
Yeah.
I agree. Honey on avocado
Yeah,
toast.
I'm a fan too of avocado
Mm-hmm.
toast. It's so good.
So good. And I know that I don't know, never know how to say it.
Yeah.
Pep.
Cacio e pepe, which is cheese and pepper, like that.
Mm-hmm.
The
The pasta.
the pasta.
That has like always been a thing because
Yeah.
I'm Italian, my
Okay.
family's Italian, but it has become mainstream. It's in every Italian restaurant
Okay,
now,
now more than ever,
more than
actually. I
ever.
know.
And there's like recipes on every platform. Love that
Yeah.
trend. Love that cultural trend.
Actually, I love that too. It's so funny because cacio e pepe, you can actually get the real thing, obviously, if you're in Rome or, somewhere in Italy. But I
Hmm.
agree with you. I think now more than ever, too, I'm seeing it on more Italian restaurant menus. And I've also seen it on, we were at an Italian restaurant in Newport Beach. They had cacio e pepe octopus. Does that make sense? And
Whoa.
they also in New York, although it was at the Gramercy and no, the Gramercy Rose Hotel, which
Uh-huh.
no longer is in existence, but they had an Italian restaurant too a couple years ago where it was cacio e pepe eggs.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So like
so
without
good.
the pasta, but with the
Yeah, that
other
flavor.
fixins. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta try that.
Yeah, I feel you on that.
Nice.
Well, Cassidy, I this time has just gone by so
I
quickly. I so
know.
appreciate you for doing this, but even more as a human being. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
You too.
much.
This was so awesome. Thank you
Yeah,
for having me.
so fun. And for those whose comments we weren't able to like spend a whole lot of attention to,
Sorry.
I'm so sorry. Although Tony Cordasco, I love this as a bottle rat. I see this every day, Marisa. Tony and I go way back. He
Oh,
as it was at Red Bull, and he is like this uber marketer, but he's
nice.
OG Red Bull when the brand first came to the United States. So
Oh,
Tony,
cool.
I know that you've been coming to CultureCast. I love that you're just saying this.
Oh, that's
He's such a
amazing.
good dude. I mean, I love
Yeah.
everyone who jumps onto these. And, Trisha, I know, was just on there. We used to work together. We were colleagues. Michael was on here too. Like, it's
Hmm.
great to see people who are big fans of yours.
That's so
Amazing.
nice. Thanks,
I love
everyone.
it.
This is
Well,
cool.
thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. I heart you, Cassidy. You're
I heard you,
amazing.
Marisa. Thank you.
Um, and I think that's it for now. That is CultureCast for today, everyone. I'm just trying to think of the next time we're going to be together. We've got a couple coming up, and normally I'm really good with the dates.
You're
But one
fine.
that's coming up a month from now, we'll probably have one before then, is with Oscar Munoz, who is the former chairman and CEO of United Airlines. So
That's
hopefully you all
awesome.
can jump on. But in the meanwhile, how can people get a hold of you?
I'm on all the
Okay.
platforms. It's just at Cassadee Pope on everything. My
Okay.
website is Cassadee.com. And yeah, I'm on TikTok,
Oh,
Instagram,
great. Okay.
Twitter, Threads, all that.
Love it. Okay,
Yeah.
everyone, please reach out to Cassidy. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And that's it for now, everyone. Be well. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
outro.
Outro. Love it. It's a vibe.
Right?
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know where that's coming from. Yeah. I think it might be. It's okay. We get to hear the outro, though.
Oh, it's like going back and forth between my ears.